All right. It is time for the witnesses. You have been waiting patiently this entire trial. It's finally your time. Your name is called. Bam, camera's on. And all of a sudden, you have to act like you have been in this trial the entire time. You have been engaged this entire time. And it's very, very difficult. You know, normally you would think of a witness as you're sitting there for 3 hours, you're watching the testimony, maybe you're reacting to the testimony. But in these situations, it's very, very different. So if we can just start generally, much like the attorneys, you have to be aware of where you're looking. We said it every single one of these Zoom little episodes here. You have to look at the camera. I don't care if you put a face next to the camera, put your mom, your dad, your parent, your guardian, your significant other. I don't care. Someone you want to talk to, and look at that camera so you can get the good eye contact that you want. This is especially difficult, I've noticed, for witnesses on cross. Witnesses on cross want to look at the other attorney when they're questioning because it's a new person. You want to look at them. You want to see what they're doing. Look at the camera. Okay. That is the most difficult thing for witnesses to pull off is eye contact on cross. You have to be extremely aware of your tone, your pace, and your volume. Normally, witnesses are kind of the kings of this. They control how quickly they answer. They control the emotion that comes out in the answer that maybe feeds back into the question. But if you lose that emotion through the camera, which you're going to lose some of this emotion on Zoom. You have to amp it up a little bit. You have to push the boundary of what you think is good and acceptable. So that way you can communicate it effectively for your attorney and for the judges. Ultimately, though, be flexible, okay? Your internet's going to cut out. Your attorney's going to cut out. Be flexible, be natural, play it like your witness, okay? If you're an old person, oh, I'm sorry, son, and my internet seemed to cut out there for a minute, right? Be confused. Oh, I haven't done many of these Zooms before. If you're a techie, you got to get it, right? If you're a younger person, generally younger people will understand technology, so you shouldn't be flubbed by this. But make sure that you stay in character when these inevitable tech issues happen. Be clear about what's happening with you. You know, I judged a high school round where an attorney on cross shared their screen to show an exhibit, but the exhibit wasn't there. And a lot of witnesses would just, I'm showing you exhibit 3. Yep. Okay. I have exhibit 3. I know what this is. This witness said, no, you're not. And call the attorney out. And that's what you need to do. You need to stay true to the witness character, but you need to be real about what's happening. Don't just go along with emotions. Okay. In person, if we get an exhibit, you read it before you say it's a fair and accurate copy. You look for your signature if you're getting impeached. Okay. Do those things, but be real about what's happening on Zoom. Don't just fold because it's difficult. It's hard for everybody, but you shouldn't sacrifice your witness just because it's difficult.
One of the things that I know Ben mentioned, and we mentioned before on the general Zoom episode here, but you really need to think about is when you're the witness in a courtroom or conference room or wherever it is that you're doing your mock trial, everyone's looking at you. And there's no way to unfocus that judge or juror because you're there for the most part. But with Zoom, any little thing that can grab your attention away from a computer screen, you're going to take. And so what usually worked for emotion for witnesses is that, that feeling you get in the room, right? Like when something's building and you can feel it just because there's a human connection. There's something visceral happening. There's something emotive happening. It's not there. It's just totally not there. And if they feel uncomfortable in a courtroom, they have nowhere to go, right? And that sells. They're feeling uncomfortable on Zoom. They just pick up their phone. They just mute you. They can turn away and they can easily disengage, which is losing the power of an emotional witness. So what you might try instead of being extremely sad is don't have that emotion lost into translation of Zoom. Maybe go angry because anger can still sell. I've seen anger sell, but being really sad does not really sell. It doesn't sound good over Zoom to have like a sort of whiny, sniffly, voice coming across. I just want to look away. But anger seems to work. Also, it's really hard to see your tears. So all that work that you're going through is really going to be lost. But one of the things that you can maybe make up for when you lose the emotional communication because of Zoom is you have the benefit, unlike attorneys, to use, but I'm going to say really exploit the fact that your background can augment your character without saying anything. Unless the organization that you're under controls this, use the background to your advantage. Think about what would this person be doing? What is their living room, bedroom? What do their bookshelves look like? What do they have on the wall? Can you sell something from a business if you're a business person that's back on the wall? If you have a hobby, are those things now on the wall or near you? It's like costuming. And I've found that judges pay attention to that because they don't want to look at your face the entire time. They're going to look into the background. And if they see something that matches your character, they tend to comment on it. They're like, oh, that was really good. So you can do these things without wasting time through question and answer and building foundation by simply just having, if your character is into, I don't know, racing, and I'll have a whole bunch of paraphernalia on the wall from Formula One or NASCAR or something like that, right? It's subtle, but it works. All right. So do that. Or let's say your witness is somebody who's really into baking and they just call in while they're making brownies or something, right? It works because that's what would happen. They're getting the call on Zoom. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm 2 minutes away from getting things out of the oven. So think about those things when you're bringing your character to the screen. It can also help you to get in the frame of mind. Like Ben said, it's hard to go from camera off to now I'm this fake person. So really help yourself focus by putting yourself in an environment that belongs to that witness. That being said, don't have inappropriate things in your background that are just not fitting with the character or really just not appropriate to have in the background. Like even if you have a painting you really like, let's say that somehow is going to be distracting, or a poster of something, just keep that in mind. If you're going to do a background, real is preferred because when you do the virtual background, it gets kind of glitchy on the edges and that can be distracting when you move. So you want to make sure that your background is augmenting or helping your character score points. It is not something that is going to distract the judges from what you're saying, because if you give them an opportunity to ignore you and pay attention to something else, they're likely going to take it. They're not trying to be rude. It's just Zoom fatigue and how the human brain works. You have to force them to pay attention to that screen and what you are saying.
One thing that you can kind of weaponize additionally in Zoom, of course, use that background. That background is really, really important to witnesses to make it feel real. But a little bit of strategy, think about how Zoom is going to impact this trial. There is a delay from when you start talking to when it's broadcast to the rest of the members of the Zoom call. Use that delay to your advantage. Okay, you need to think about your attorney protecting you with objections. If there is an objectionable question on cross-exam, you have to give it a pause before you answer. That way your attorney can object, because these untimely objections, they're a lot more common on Zoom. As soon as you start answering a question, technically the time has passed to object to the form of the question. So you need to give it a little bit if you think there's an objection there, and then you can answer if your attorney has not objected. If they fail to object and it was objectionable, it's kind of on them at that point. Along those same lines, make sure that you're using that pause. It's really, really hard for attorneys to get a roll or get momentum building on Zoom. It's really difficult because of this delay. You can use that to your advantage. If you can tell that the attorney is trying to get some momentum on you, just extend your pause. We do this in real life, but it gets obnoxious quick. You can kind of tell when it's happening. On Zoom, it's just happening. And so you can stop the momentum build by pausing a little bit, weaponizing the delay, and then you can even use that to run them down on time. That's the collateral effect on this. Crosses need to be shorter now in substance because of the delay, but use the delay to your advantage a little bit when you're running these cross exams. Now on direct, you control the script. I mean, you control what's going on here. So if you know that you need to get some momentum going to build up some emotion, make sure you come on at a pretty quick clip after that question comes off so you can minimize that delay. don't get lost. Don't jump the question, but make sure that you're coming off at an appropriate speed there. There are the normal things we say all the time for witnesses. Slow down. Okay, that note will never get old. Make sure you slow down. It's a little bit exaggerated on Zoom than it was in person. And like we've been saying before, make sure to vary your tone, your emotion, engage with the judges. Okay, that is the number one thing that these judges need to stay engaged, and it's too easy for them to lose attention. So it's on you in part to make sure that you keep their attention. Demos, demonstratives, exhibit blowups, highlights, all that kind of stuff. Very, very important. If your witness has the ability in their character to use these kinds of tools, then do it. If they don't, then don't forfeit the character just to, draw an arrow on Zoom. We've seen judges that want these demos. They want the exhibits blown up because they cannot read the entire exhibit in the time that is just flashed on the screen. You need to draw their attention to the important information. So work with your attorney, work with your tech person to make sure that the PowerPoint for your exhibits, if you have one, is complete. It's in the right order. It just takes a lot more teamwork than usual to get this kind of thing happening. But if you do everything right, then your scores are going to go up. I mean, judges are impressed when witnesses can kind of communicate a character through Zoom. That's kind of the highest echelon here of Zoom mock is it feels real, it looks real. It's just a glimpse into someone's life, because bringing the witness to life is the most difficult part of being a witness on Zoom.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, the last sort of note here I would have is just embrace Zoom as much as possible. You have the luxury as a witness that you don't have as an attorney, right? An attorney is supposed to act like they're in a courtroom as much as possible. They're being professional. This is beaming into your personal life as this witness, as this person. And so embrace it. I found that if something is going wonky, you just Zoom and you call out the fact that there's a pandemic, and you call out the fact that you're dealing with Zoom. And it's, while in a courtroom, embracing that sort of idea that this is all fake can like gasp, oh my goodness. But embracing Zoom and what we're dealing with, I've seen used to great success by witnesses. So really embrace the fact that you can, without having to add more questions or time, you can really sell yourself. Get a chuckle here that you may not otherwise got just by embracing the fact that we're dealing with Zoom and slowing things down. And then if they try to say, oh, we are delaying, but oh, sorry, it was just my Wi-Fi, right? You embrace all of those things to your advantage. And then the last thing I'll say is you really need to focus, though. Once that camera light comes on, you need to be that person. If you're just one of 6 people talking to them on Zoom, it doesn't keep them engaged. So be memorable, short, sweet, and engaging, and you'll see your scores go real high.
So, okay, here's what we got for witnesses, right? Number 1, fundamentals matter. Slow down, eye contact, vary your tone and pace a little more than you would in person, but also use Zoom to augment your performance value. Use a background that's real, okay? Use Zoom as your character would use Zoom. You can even use the delay and some of the downsides of Zoom to your advantage when you're getting crossed to slow down the cross-examiner. The key here is you bring the people on this Zoom call just into this witness's life, whether they're caught in the middle of an activity or it's a realistic looking bedroom or office. Bringing them into your life just for a glimpse to make this person look real is the absolute peak of witness performance on Zoom.